All right, we are officially recording. Good morning, everyone. Let's have a roll call vote for opening today's meeting. Dave Demore,
Here.
Joe Semyon,
Here.
Todd Rulison,
Here.
Jane Kelly,
Here.
Mike Fitzgerald,
Here.
Joe Gillis, Tim Munn.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum and we'll start the meeting. First thing would be the minutes from the April 14th meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review those? And if so, are there any questions or comments on them? Hearing none, would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion.
Got Jane and Joe was the second. Any further discussion? Take a roll call vote on approving the minutes. Dave Demore,
Aye.
Joe Semyon,
Aye.
Todd Rulison,
Aye.
Jane Kelly,
Aye.
Mike Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Tim Munn.
Aye.
Would like to note that a transcript of that April 14th meeting has been prepared and it has been posted onto the IDA's website in compliance with Governor Cuomo's executive order suspending the open meetings law. And we will again be preparing a full transcript of this meeting and doing the same with that, posting it onto the website. Okay, go to the budget report, which was attached to your agenda. Going through that quickly here, on the revenue side, we had the revenue from our land lease with, out at Tryon for $600, a reimbursement from Vireo for electric costs, investment earnings of $82.21. On the expenditure side, again, our routine expenses for salary and unemployment insurance and our quarterly taxes. The bill that was paid, authorized at your last meeting for legal services. And then down below, there was $144 for work on updating the Tryon website and the $99 payment for the SSL certificate that was also approved at the last meeting and is showing up as an expense on this month's budget report. For Tryon, again, the only thing listed there is the offsetting revenue and expense for Vireo's electricity. Any questions on the budget report?
Yeah, a quick
Jim, this is
question about the
Todd.
Tryon.
Go ahead, Todd.
The report that I have shows investment earnings of $4,357.79.
That was incorrect because that included the revenue from the CD that was due. And when we sent that out, we hadn't caught that. And so the revised numbers that is what I gave to you, that which is the correct figure of 8221. That's okay. That was mistakenly carried in, and I didn't catch that before we sent you out that budget report last week.
Okay,
Fair
thank
enough?
you.
Yep. The other thing.
Joe Semyon,
Yep. Go ahead, Joe.
your question about the Tryon insurance through Ymca.
I'm
Did we ever
glad you
get any
raised that question.
follow-up?
We did follow up. I did follow up with that. I spoke with John Stead because all of our Ymca insurance goes through him as our Ymca representative. What we had, we were carrying $4 million of coverage on Building 3. And we were carrying
Right.
$1 million coverage on Building 60, the old maintenance
Okay.
building. So what we agreed to do was to reduce the value of the insurance on Building 3 from $4 million to $1 million, and had that just apply to the Midas building.
Okay, great.
'Cause that's the building that's really has value for us. All right. So, and in addition, there was, we were carrying $10,000 worth of contents on building 60, the maintenance building. There are no contents in the building. So we've requested that Ymca adjust our policy to go from 4 million to 1 million and eliminating the contents coverage on building 60. I emailed Bill Van Gorder, who's our rep, and asked him to incorporate those changes, and those should be reflective in the next premium invoice that we get.
Okay, great.
Okay,
Thank you for doing that.
sure thing.
Good job.
Any other questions on the budget report?
Joe
Hearing
Simeon,
none.
make a motion to accept the budget report.
Joe Simeon, is there a second?
I'll second.
Tim Munn. Any further questions? A roll call vote. I'm going to switch it up this time to keep you guys on your toes. Tim Munn,
Aye.
Mike Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Jane Kelly,
Aye.
Todd Rulison,
Aye.
Joe Simeon,
Aye.
Dave Demore.
Aye.
Motion is passed. Committee reports, monthly bank reconciliation report. Dave?
Yeah, I had a chance to look at everything this month. Everything looked in good order. So each of those reports has been signed and approved.
Very good. Thank you. Under other reports, John Blackman, anything to report from the Board of Supervisors?
Well, we had all 20 supervisors at the Zoom and phone conference yesterday. We did pass the resolution for the workforce reduction phase 4. It's a temporary layoff. That'll be determined by the department heads. The other thing that's happening is that most of the monies for the different programs from the state looks like they're being held up, and like the CHIPS money for the roads is being held up. So we have no idea what kind of monies we're going to be getting from the state yet. So, and that's all because of COVID, of course. So, and then I think you've heard, that Fulton County went from being a low county in the state to one of the higher counties. We got 134 cases, 9 dead. All of it, about half of it just coming from the Fulton Center. That's it.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, John. Terry, anything to report from the CRG?
Yes, I have a quick report.
Thank you.
The CRG building project, 34 West Fulton Street construction project, signed contracts to move forward with the construction project. Project will consist of new roof, repair front facade, the demolition of the rear garage, construction financing in place with actual construction anticipated to start in several weeks. First phase of our LED lighting program complete. Now looking to estimate phase 2. 2018 to 2020 micro enterprises grant program received funding for 4 applicants, dispersed funding to 3 applicants. Next round of micro enterprise grant training to start hopefully in June. If and when CFA rounds open up, we plan on to apply for another round of the grants funding. Industrial projects, Pioneer Windows completed the, hold on, no, that's left out. We are assisting Pioneer Windows on their financing. Business tours currently on hold. Community assistance, Gloversville working with the LWRP and BRI, working on several projects on Main Street. Additionally, working with a developer on a larger parcel in the city of Gloversville. Johnstown, initial stages of looking at possible project in downtown. Mayfield looking forward to grand opening of the great Second Dogger Brewing Company. Construction is progressing nicely. Northville looking at a project, some project opportunities. Kroger Lake closing on the financing for the next donor in a week. Business marketing inquiries. Received several new inquiries this month. Still working with them. Excuse me, I'm doing this on my phone because it wouldn't open up on my computer. Most of our efforts have been dealing with businesses on the SBA programs and what money is available, of course. 1st. 2020 CRG business events all canceled for now. Micro enterprises grant training, business training, small business networking sessions, Gloversville Small Business Symposium, 2020 initiatives, marketing, initiative contact embassies if and when the COVID allows, developer relationships ongoing, farm program on semi-hold until COVID-19 allows, grant opportunities ongoing, workforce program on hold, incubator program on hold, currently moving some programming to Zoom programming, and our website currently working with Embry. It's ongoing, having a meeting every week. And that concludes the report.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Anyone have any questions on those two reports from John and Terry?
I see through email that there's going to be a Zoom meeting about SBA, the PPP program through Ken tomorrow, I believe, at 3 o'clock, which should be informative.
That is correct. Yeah.
I have received them and have questions about what the terms are to make sure they're forgiven if they can be. That's very good.
Okay. Moving on to old business, our Johnstown Renewables project. If you flip forward to page 5 of your agenda to go over what the our latest and greatest information is on that project. Johnstown Renewables Council spoke with Kara both on April 29th and more recently, advising that their facility is still for sale. They've actually executed, Kara, correct me if I'm wrong, our termination agreement.
Yeah, they've told me that it's been executed. It's being sent to me from California. I didn't get it yet, so maybe today.
But they were advised, they advised that
Yes,
it
they
has
advised
been
it's been
executed.
signed. Yep.
They are still holding all proceeds from the auction in an escrow account. And they asked if the IDA would consent to their law firm being paid from the proceeds of the auction that they're holding in escrow. Karen and I discussed that and felt that while the request is legitimate, until we know how much sales tax they're going to have to repay, we don't know whether there's enough in that escrow account to repay the sales tax and then pay their law firm. So we're not presenting that request to you yet to act on that. It is something that the board will have to approve. But for now, we need to find out from Taxation and Finance what they are determining to be the amount of sales tax we should be recapturing. To that end, Kara finally has had a conversation with auditors and counsel from Taxation and Finance. Kara explained the fact that Johnstown Renewables filed 2 what they're called ST-340 forms, which identifies the amount of sales tax exemptions that they took on their project. The original form said that they took $960,000 worth of sales tax exemptions, and then their amended form that they filed showed the figure to be around $55,000. Big difference. And for us, you have authorized to recapture sales tax benefits from them, but we don't know what that amount is, since they have filed 2 separate forms with 2 separate numbers. And so Kara explained all that to Taxation and Finance, and what they asked for was for us to send them a package of documents, including our lease with Johnstown Renewables, the original ST-340 form, the amended form, ST-60 form, ST-62 form, and send it all to them. They would review all that information and then make a decision and advise us as to what would be the correct amount of sales tax exemptions we should recapture from Johnstown Renewables. And so until we know that number, we don't know if there's enough money in that escrow account to repay sales tax and to compensate us and their attorneys for their fees. Kara, anything else to add on that?
I don't think so. I believe there's a check being sent to us too, as part of their payoff of the early termination. I'm going to the office later on this afternoon, so hopefully I can get everything and get it over to Jim if we've got the terminations as well. But that pretty much sums up my conversation with Tax and Finance and the status of where we are with Johnstown Renewables.
Okay. Any questions?
Just a quick thing about on page 7 where it says update, the second dot down, it's
Yep.
just a typo. It says they presented their term,
Yes.
not resent, right? And then
That's
it says
correct.
later on,
Well,
resented
you
her
win the
termination.
donut prize today for catching that typo.
Boston cream, please.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
All righty.
You may resent it though, but
Moving on to the next item, which is our updating of our IDA website. That work is ongoing. We have been in contact with both EMSI and ESRI regarding purchasing data. We're going through those numbers right now. That cost is going to be somewhere potentially in the $2,000 to $5,000 range. Based upon the preliminary information that we've gotten. Our next step is to sit down with the county and with the CRG, with Ron and Ken, to show them these proposals, to talk about and reach consensus on the exact data sets that we want to look to purchase. You know, we have, for the purposes of getting some rough pricing, sent to both of these firms our thoughts on what the type of data we should have. We need to get that finalized. And so hopefully within the next month or two, we will have gotten this buttoned down and we can come back to the respective boards and say, here's the type of data we were looking to acquire. Here's the cost. Here's how we may be able to share that. And we can all collectively make a decision in that regard. The other thing that we've completed, which was attached to your agenda, was I think a very important information, and that deals with workforce training. I want to thank Jane for her assistance in putting together all of the information in that report regarding the programs that the college provides and sponsors. I did the same with Dr. Hornforce from BOCES and Gail Breen from Workforce Development. Those three individuals provided all the input in putting this thing together. So I wanted to thank all three of them. And as you look through that document, it's pretty impressive the magnitude of workforce training programs that we do have available here in Fulton County. So that is all going to be put onto the IDA's website. I'm going to be sending this also to Ron Peters in hopes that he would do the same with the CRG's website. Any questions on that quick status report? Alrighty. Next item is our Capital Resources Corporation. Unfortunately, I have little to report there. I did email County Attorney Jason Brott last month after our last meeting, asked him if he had a chance to review this information. Jason's office is not open right now, so I've called several times, but I haven't been able to get in touch with him. So we'll keep this open for now until we hear back from Jason in that regard. Next item was under old business is our work with Cushman Wakefield. The listing agreement has been executed, as was authorized at the last meeting. Cushman Wakefield has listed Tryon's shovel-ready land and the two buildings onto their website. As shown on your agenda, the land is listed at $27,500 per acre. The 15,000 square foot building 60, or the former maintenance building, is listed at $150,000. And the 15,000 square foot portion of building 3 that we all call the Midas building is listed at $350,000. Those are now listed. They're out for public review, and hopefully we'll start seeing some interest in either or both the land and the buildings. Ron Peters emailed me last week asking for information about the two buildings and what utilities service them. I sent that information over to Ron, so he now has all pertinent information about those two buildings that we now have listed with Cushman Wakefield. Any questions or comments on that?
On the two buildings,
Yep.
How are they structurally? I mean, obviously, we've been out there a couple of years ago, but are they getting worse? I mean, the Tryon building, or the maintenance building, I think we had thought maybe 100,000 way back when, and now it's sat there for 2 or 3 years. And I see that they put a $150,000 price tag on it. So I'm just curious about their assessment.
Somehow, Joe, the buildings have gotten stronger.
Yes, yeah, that's great.
They are structurally sound, Joe.
Okay.
The 3 representatives from Cushman Wakefield that joined with Scott and I in touring those buildings a few weeks ago, all 3 were incredibly impressed with the physical conditions of those buildings. There is not a crack in a wall, in a floor of any significance. And so from a structural standpoint, both buildings are strong. Building 60, the former maintenance building, really the only issue with that building is going to have to replace the boiler. And then whatever internal cosmetic improvements somebody would want to make. Other than that, that building is in good shape. The other thing will be having to bring a new electric service in that's going to tie into the new electric service that National Grid's in the process of installing. Okay. For the Midas building, that building, the challenge with that building is that all of these building systems, water, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, were all run off of the services that service building 3. So what we did way back when was had a CT Mail conduct an engineering evaluation to look at how we could set up the Midas building with its own standalone systems.
Right.
And what they did was they looked at one room that was in the one corner of the building and said, we convert that room, which used to be a storage room, basically into a mechanical room. Put a new boiler in there and interconnect that to all of the buildings' existing hot and cold water systems, which were all brand new. Those were the new heating and cooling system that was put in that building just before the Tryon was closed. So there's all brand new heating and cooling units and hot and cold water lines serving those. So it's a matter of just plopping in a boiler and interconnecting to those pipes, and just use that whole piping network and to provide heat and cooling for the building. The same thing with the electrical systems. You know, all we would do is put a new electrical panel, run that new electric service in that would tie into the new service going in on 117 and interconnect everything. So CT Mail determined that it's very feasible to set up that building as a with standalone systems at a relatively inexpensive cost for doing so. So that was all shared with Cushman Wakefield. They saw that and felt that both buildings were very marketable, and hoping to start getting some interest in one or both of those buildings here soon.
Did they say anything about the rest of building 3, the classrooms and the cafeterias and obviously the auditorium and the gymnasium? Any value or possibilities with that?
They didn't see much value in that section of the building.
I figured, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Very good.
All right.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions?
Jim, where are we deeming that those are the 2 buildings or 3 buildings that are still marketable? Where are we in terms of demolition of some of the other buildings? I know a number of them have been taken down. There's still several left, and I don't know where we are in terms of budget for that moving forward in the near future.
Great question, Tim. The buildings that have been taken down to date have been taken down by the county. The first set of buildings were taken down as part of the first project out there when we took over Tryon and we built that loop road. We took down 4 or 5 buildings at that time. And then there was a second wave of building demolition about 2 years ago where the county came in using its own forces and tore down another half a dozen buildings on the east side of the loop road as you're coming in. So there are a number of buildings left, and the way we've discussed dealing with those is that if and when we can get another lot sale and generate some revenues, we could look then to invest some of those into further building demolitions. Or if a company comes in and wants to purchase a piece of property that has existing buildings on them, we would negotiate with that potential sale at that time to either take some of the proceeds from the lot sale and have those buildings taken down, or to potentially negotiate the sales price per acre, to provide an incentive for the prospective company to take it down themselves. So we do have more to take down. On the flip side, we do now have a large number of acres that are free and clear of buildings. And the hope would be to try and get those properties, that land sold first, if we can, to generate the revenues that we would need to continue the rest of the building demolition. Fair enough? Any other questions? Okay. Quick update on the Tryon electric project that I have referenced a couple of times here. National Grid has started work on both the overhead and underground service. That project is being managed by Scott because it's a county project. Scott, can you give us a quick update on where things are?
Hello, y'all. How you doing? Just quickly, Chris Stankus, planner in my office, has been on site since the start of the underground portion of the project. He's basically clerking it for the county. He's doing an outstanding job of it. So I'm very fortunate that I have him out there. The county highway department is doing the trenching and the digging. There are various pieces of equipment out there that the county has supplied. They have a crew out there every day. doing that part of the work. So back in early April, National Grid started to install the new poles along County Road 107 and then into the park on the old entrance road that goes from 107 to basically where the pond is, if you recall. On or about April 20th, we started to work on the underground service. There were 5 manholes that have been installed around County Road 117 or 117. When I say a manhole, these things are about 8 foot wide and 20 feet long. So it's not just a simple manhole. It's basically a small room that is put into the ground so that National Grid can pull wires, et cetera, et cetera. They're pretty substantial, and all of those holes had to be dug by county forces and then installed. The transformer pads for the transformers, 3 of them that we are installing as we speak. They're going to be located near Deferral Health, and then 1 down by the wastewater treatment plant, as well as up by the water tower. 2 of them hopefully will be installed today. So far, we've trenched and installed 1,600 feet of 5-inch conduits between the 5 manholes. The next step is going to be to install those the switch gears at the manholes around County Road 117, as well as installing the transformer pads. Like I said, hopefully 2 of those will be done today. Once all of that infrastructure installed, National Grid will then come in and pull all of the wires between the manholes and the transformer pads. Tom Gray, whom you hired, will do the cut over, connecting the wastewater treatment plant as well as the water booster station, and make those connections moving forward. So right now it looks as though pretty much the month of May will be used up by installation. Hopefully early June, I think, was when the final cutover will take place. And that's just based upon how schedules are working right now. Some additional costs, as you see in your agenda, that the county has undertaken so far is, if you recall, originally we were going to utilize Fulton County Soil and Water District's TRACO. Okay, it ended up being slightly too large for the trenching project. I think it had a 24-inch bucket, and Mark Yost, our highway superintendent, felt as though it was a little bit overkill. It was hard for the person using the TRACO to, I guess, feel whether or not he was going to be, coming across something and hitting that. Wasn't sensitive enough, so to speak, and the bucket was just too wide. So Mark decided to rent a backhoe, smaller backhoe with an 18-inch bucket for a cost of around $2,500 for the month. It's still being used. The other reason was Soil and Water's TRACO has metal tracks. And it was kind of tearing up 117 a little bit in places. So Mark wanted to protect that, and the backhoe that they're renting has rubber tracks. We also had to utilize a vacuum truck in the area from the around the pond and going toward Deferral Health. There's a culvert where the pond is. And once the existing utilities were marked, there really was no location to safely dig using mechanical means. So we brought in a vacuum truck that basically shoots high pressure water in and then sucks everything out and basically vacuums out the earth. So that was brought in for a cost of $23.20. And lastly, sand has been delivered in order to to set the base of the trenches where the conduits, as well as the transformer pads. There had to be a bedding of sand. We knew that going in. We received 1 load so far at a cost of around $380. Not sure how many other additional loads will be required, but those are three additional costs that the county has incurred on this installation. So that's where we're at the moment. Are there any questions? No? Okay.
I'm back. All right, moving on to new business. First item for discussion is the lands that are on the south side of County Road 107. If you recall, we retained Caldwell banker Arlene M. Sitterly to market that 27-acre parcel of land on the south side of 107. That's been listed now for several months. Since that time, we have received 4 formal offers to purchase the property. Unfortunately, one of those offers was subsequently withdrawn. We'll talk about that further here in a second. On your agenda is a summary of the 4 offers that have been received. I'd like to just quickly go through those and what they include. The first offer was from Alan Squires and John McCashin. They offered, or we had the property listed for $100,000 for the 27 acres. They made an offer of $90,000. There was one contingency, and that the purchaser shall obtain at the purchaser's expense all government approvals and/or permits necessary to use the premises as a residential multifamily development. What they're proposing to use the property for is listed there in your agenda, but it's basically a multi-year project to develop housing on that 27-acre parcel. The second offer was from Dave Huckins and Mr. Verma, Baljit Verma. The amount was for $30,000. There were no contingencies to that offer. And the uses proposed are identified in your agenda. We did receive yesterday from Terry some additional information regarding that offer. I emailed that out to everybody if you had a chance to take a look at that. The third offer was from a John Konaz, offered in the amount of $27,500. There was one contingency was for the buyer to get zoning approvals for multiple apartments to be constructed on the property, and the proposed use was going to be obviously apartment buildings. And the fourth offer was the one that we did receive that was withdrawn, and it was drawn because the lender that was going to be financing the project withdrew its commitment to fund the project as a result of this COVID-19 pandemic that we're in. So there are 3 offers that are on the table for consideration, and let's open it up for any discussion that there may be.
Jim, this is Dave Demore.
Yep.
The first group that had submitted the proposal, Alan Squires and John McCashin, they had come in to speak with a couple of us and offer an explanation of their plans. At that time, they had committed to going to the planning board, the town planning board, for at least a concept review. Have they accomplished that?
Yes, they did. Dave, they did go to the Town of Perth Planning Board. They had a conceptual plan that they showed them so that planning board members could get a sense of the type of and quality of the housing that they were proposing to build, as well as the extent of the housing. Sean Garrity from the planning department was at the meeting and reported back to me that the proposal was well received by planning board members, and I think Mr. Squires felt the same way, that he got a very positive reaction to what they were proposing. So it was obviously conceptual, but I think they feel good that if and when they went back for formal approval, that they would be in a good position to obtain that.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments or observations?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
I think I lost you. Are you talking about the offers?
Yes, we are, Joe.
Okay, sorry. I think my computer went down for a second. But anyways, so was the one comment about the $90,000 offer about?
Yeah, Dave asked if Mr. Squires and Mr. McCashin had the opportunity to go talk with the town of Perth Planning Board about their proposal. I advised that they had and that they were well received.
Okay, good. Quick question. Now they're going to be responsible for the sewer tie-in. Before they were asking us, right? And then we said,
They asked if that was possible.
right.
And we shared with them that the IDA was not going to pay for any costs associated with restarting that sewer pump station. But if it's something they wished to do and undertake, that would be up to them.
Right,
Or they would look to put in their own septic systems for each building.
right, as others have looked at.
Yep.
Okay. The one person that had to withdraw, is there any chance that financing down the road could happen again? I mean,
I asked when we last communicated, I explained or advised Mark to let me know if that occurred. So that if something broke before the IDA board made a decision, that we would, we'd like to know that so we could factor that information into your decision, but I've not heard back from Mark since.
okay. And I
Okay.
sent an email out, just, my own thought was that the other two were just way too low. So I think it just seems we have one valid, one reasonable offer at this point to possibly consider.
Perry, is there anything to add from your end?
Nope, pretty much said it all.
Okay. Is the board comfortable with making a decision today on what to do? And I think your choices are to accept one of these offers as submitted, or to reject all offers. Those would appear to be your two options to consider.
I would like to make a motion to accept the $90,000 offer and start moving forward with it. I know we've had some interest in the property with obviously 4 showings and 4 offers being done, which is great. But I think we just can't keep stringing it along. And I think they were the first ones that came and they presented stuff. They've gone to the town to see if they can be approved for what they want to do. And I think at this point, it's time to try to go that direction.
Is there a second to that motion?
I will
I'll
second it.
Mike? Any further discussions or comments or questions? I would just note that this motion would be to accept the offer. And per the offer, any transaction would not be finalized until such time as they obtained their local approval from the town planning board. That's when we would look to do a closing and consummate this transaction. But it wouldn't be until then.
Do we want to put a time limit on that, Jim? Just so that we're not strung out, that they don't go to the planning board for whatever reason? Should we give them like 2 opportunities to go to a planning board meeting or something along those lines?
Terry, Terry, how is that? Is there a way to handle that?
Given today's COVID, are they doing Zoom meetings?
No,
The planning board, I didn't think so.
right.
So I would put a timeline on that. However, we have to be sensitive to the COVID-19 situation. I know
Todd-
the things are going to open up somewhat soon, but I don't know what about, the meetings again. Does anybody have any idea when that's going to open up again?
I think
Well-
what I heard Todd say was not necessarily a specific time period, but that they would be presenting at one of the next 2 available planning board meetings for the town of Perth.
Okay,
And I think that would be
That's fair
reasonable.
enough. An
Yeah,
opportunity, you can, just put it in as far as a contingency when opportunity arises, that you have the ability to go before the board and get approvals. That could be factored into the contract.
This is Dave Demore. Are they prepared to make an application to the planning board at this time? Or will there be some time needed to generate documents and application material?
And there will be, they will need some time to do that.
Because the other thing I would suggest with this COVID-19 situation is, even though there's hints that our local area will start to open up for business, there's been reporting that there's a chance of a rebound, a spike after things open up. So there has to be, I think, some acknowledgement that there is the chance that there could be future shutdowns that could affect timing that they nor us could control. So whatever is done, I think, needs to be dealt with, equitably for both parties. I don't have an objection to putting a certain number of meetings into the agreement that says, within a certain time, certain number of meetings, you should have your approval. But I think it's going to be very dicey with the status of things right now to understand what that means.
Well, whatever time frame that you put into this motion, I think could be amended, at the end of that time frame, and an extension granted if circumstances warranted.
Mm-hmm.
We say, for example, that within the next 2 meetings, you have to get it done. Those 2 meetings come and go, but for some reason he couldn't attend. His design plans weren't done or something of that nature. So I think you could, look to grant an extension to whatever time frame you establish.
And then once we go to contract, the attorneys will have review, and the attorneys can make that stipulation too.
So
I think that's fair. I mean, and as we all know, we have definitely granted extensions, which sometimes
Several.
I had to say that. 1 or 2 possibly, but no, we'll get this one done hopefully.
Okay, Joe, so would you be willing to modify your motion to accept the first offer with the understanding that the purchaser would obtain its local approvals within the next 2 meetings of the town planning board, whenever those meetings are held?
Right, that would be acceptable.
Is that
Yes.
acceptable?
I'll make that motion, yes.
Okay, Mike, are you comfortable accepting that as to your second?
I will amend my second.
Okay. Having said that, is there any additional questions or comments? Having none, let's do a roll call vote on the motion to accept the offer from Alan Squires and John McCashin in the amount of $90,000 for the 27-acre parcel on the south side of County Road 107. Dave Demore,
Aye.
Joe Semyon,
Aye.
Todd Rulison,
Aye.
Jane Kelly,
Aye.
Mike Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Joe Gillis. Okay, I wasn't sure. He's trying to get connected in, but Tim Munn,
Aye.
the motion has passed.
Now, will the other two offers be told that we've accepted something else? Well, will Terry's office notify them or?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you, Terry.
So
You're
Terry, the next step would be to execute a contract,
That is correct.
which you will prepare?
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Next item, we have a bill to pay regarding the IDA's website in the amount of $144.40 for hosting for less, for actually hosting the IDA's website and the domain name registration for 1 year. Would someone make a motion to authorize that payment in the amount of $144.40?
I'll make a motion.
Jane, thank you. Is
I'll
there a second to that?
Dave?
Dave, I'm sorry. Thank you. Any questions or comments? All right, roll call vote. Tim Munn,
Aye.
Mike Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Jane Kelly,
Aye.
Todd Rulison,
Aye.
Joe Semyon,
Aye.
David Demore.
Aye.
The motion passed. Next, a potential solar project for discussion. For sake of background, back about a month ago, the IDA received an introductory email from a Keith Sandor, president of a company called Nexus Renewables, providing him background information about the company and asking if the IDA had any property it would be interested in having a solar project developed on. I responded back with an email, sent them a map showing the 60-acre tract of land adjacent to the Tryon Technology Park that the IDA owns that we had previously talked with another solar company about a few years ago. We went back and forth. They expressed an interest, and back on April 27th, we conducted a Zoom meeting with Dave, Scott, and myself, and Nexus Renewables to further discuss their interest in developing a solar project on this parcel. Who is Nexus Renewables? They're a renewable energy developer that builds, owns, operates, and finances renewable energy assets. They're based in Canada. They've been operational for a little over a year now, and they've already contracted for 15 projects, 4 of which are here in New York State. And 3 of those projects are New York State Gas and Electric, and 1 is with Con Ed. Those are all solar projects. And then they have 11 other projects in Canada, which are all battery energy storage systems. So this 60-acre site or tract of land is adjacent to the Tryon Technology Park. It's not part of the park. The intention was never to have this developed as a shovel-ready site because of its location. And it is, it was part of the 515 acres of land that the state deeded to the IDA as part of Tryon. But it was never, because of its location and terrain, it was never identified to be part of the Tryon Park proper. Just like the 27 acres that you just agreed to sell to Mr. McCashin was never considered to be part of the Tryon Technology Park proper. So Nexus Renewables is proposing to build a 6.875 megawatt solar project on this site. They would pay for all costs associated with developing, constructing, and operating the solar project. The IDA would incur no development costs. Nexus Renewables is proposing to lease land, this land from the IDA during the duration of the project. And the IDA would generate 2 sources of revenue from this project. One would be from the land lease where Nexus Renewables would pay a flat rate per acre per year. And the second would be based upon the amount of solar energy that's generated. Nexus Renewables would pay a flat rate per kilowatt hour of solar energy generated to the IDA. So there's an interest, there's a tract of land, there's a potential opportunity for the IDA to generate a revenue in return for leasing some lands to this company. There are a number of issues that would obviously need to be discussed and addressed in a lease that we would ultimately look to execute with Nexus Renewables. And so the generic question to the board this morning is this something of interest to you that you would want staff and council to negotiate a potential lease agreement with the company that we would come back and present to the board for consideration at a later date?
I would be in favor of that, seeing it was land that we weren't looking for shovel-ready sites. It would be a nice usage of that land off to the left.
Okay.
I'm generally in favor of exploring this further, Jim.
Okay. And I think, again, at this stage, I think you summed it up well, Dave. It's exploring further. Obviously not making any commitments today. That would only be made after all of the issues that would be out there would be satisfactorily addressed in a proposed lease agreement.
So the lease would be 25 years. Jim, is that correct? This is Tim.
To be determined. Tim, it could actually be longer.
Okay.
All right. Again, that's one of the details that have to be addressed. There's going to be other issues. I mean, the town of Johnstown has some fairly detailed zoning requirements for solar farms that that include, for example, a decommissioning plan. And so that our lease would have to include a decommission plan. How, at the end of that lease, whether it's 25 years, 35 years, 15 years, what's going to happen to all that solar equipment?
Right.
All right. And for the town of Johnstown, they basically say, we got to come up with a source of revenue, that will be available at the end of that lease, that would pay for the cost of that decommissioning. And so how that's done would have to be determined, and incorporated into the lease, as well as into the plans that they would ultimately have to submit to the town planning board for their approval. So that's just one. I mean, how is access going to be given to the site? All right. One of the issues that we have, for example, is within the Tryon Technology Park proper along County Road 117, we want all utilities to be underground. So wherever that solar project is going to interconnect into National Grid's distribution network, if it is going to require crossing and anywhere within the Tryon Technology Park, those wires are going to have to all be underground. So those are just some of the examples of some of the issues that we're going to need to work through with Nexus Renewables in order to be able to come back to you with an actual lease for consideration. Okay?
Like Dave said, I think it's worth pursuing. It's in the initial stages.
Well, is someone willing to make a motion to authorize going to that next step, which would be to negotiate both a lease agreement and a power purchase agreement?
I'll make that motion.
I would second it.
Any further discussion or questions?
I think just one more comment, Jim. It's Mike Fitzgerald. I think it was Todd had proposed earlier in the week that if we do a multiple year lease, maybe we have escalators in that lease over the time period.
To be negotiated. Okay?
Yes, yep, understood.
Okay, but no, it's a great point. What we will do is try to resolve all of these the technical issues first. Okay, and once we can get those, and if we can reach consensus on all of these issues, I think the last piece would then be to sit down and discuss revenues. And at that time, we would look to try to negotiate revenues that would be acceptable to the IDA. Okay. Kara, anything from your end?
Sounds fair.
Very good. All right. If there's no other questions, I'll take a roll call vote on on David's motion to go to the next step of negotiating both a lease and power purchase agreement with Nexus Renewables. Dave Demore,
Aye.
Todd Rulison,
Aye.
Joe Semyon,
Aye.
Jane Kelly,
Aye.
Mike Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Tim Munn.
Aye.
The motion passed. We will report back at your next meeting on what progress we're making with those two documents. Okay, next item on the agenda is the Fulton County YMCA project. Back in 2008, the IDA issued $5.45 million worth of civic facility bonds to the YMCA to construct their new facility on Harrison Street. Those bonds were purchased by MBT Bank and they're scheduled to mature on July 1, 2030. Unfortunately, the YMCA is one of the victims of the COVID-19 pandemic and it has been closed. Last week, I received a phone call from Chris Defibau, the new CEO from the YMCA, who advised that the Y had applied to MBT Bank for a 3-month deferral of its principal and interest payment that is due MBT Bank on these bonds. The deferral was going to be for the 3-month period of April 1 through June 30th. And what that deferral would result in is the maturity date on the bonds being changed from July 1 to push back 3 months to October 1. Last week, I spoke with Mike Pep, VP at MBT Bank, who requested a letter from the IDA board stating that it supported granting this 3-month deferral because of the IDA's involvement with the issuance of the debt that this deferral applies to. In addition, both Chris and Mike discussed the potential for the YMCA seeking a line of credit with NBT Bank. And in the event that they do and the bank approves that line of credit, Mike Pep also advised that if they do, they would like, again, a letter from the IDA board supporting MBT granting this line of credit, again, because of the IDA's involvement with the financing of that particular project. So on your agenda are 2 separate motions. First would be to approve the 3-month deferral that has been requested and to authorize me to send the bank a letter confirming that. And the second would be to authorize me to send a second letter in the event that the YMCA requests and NBT is willing to approve the granting of a line of credit, that the IDA board acknowledge its support for doing so. Okay? Those are the 2 motions that are going to be asked. Any questions or comments or discussion?
Okay, John? I have a quick question. The bonds, Do we know, they're paid down quite a bit though, haven't they?
Yes.
They're down to a couple $1 million left.
It's less than 2 is the current balance.
They're doing very well. I know that, yes.
Yep.
Yeah. I would make a motion to, are we just gonna do one at a time?
We're gonna do one at a time. Yes, Joe. So if
Okay,
you do the first one to approve the 3-month deferral,
I would make that motion.
Joe Samuel, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second Tim Munn.
Tim Munn? Any further discussion? Let's do a roll call vote. Jane Kelly,
Aye.
Todd Rulison,
Aye.
Joe Semyon,
Aye.
Dave Demore,
Aye.
Mike Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Tim Munn.
Aye.
The motion passed. The second motion, is someone willing to make that one as shown on your agenda?
This is Dave Demore. I'll make that motion.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it, Jim.
Todd Rulison. Any further discussion or comments? Having none, we'll do another roll call vote. Tim Munn,
Aye.
Mike Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Jane Kelly,
Aye.
Todd Rulison,
Aye.
Joe Semyon,
Aye.
Dave Demore.
Aye.
The motion has passed. So the first letter will go out today or tomorrow, and the second one will only go out in the event that the YMCA seeks and NBT is willing to grant that line of. Okay, last item on the agenda is deals with an old lift that remains in the Midas building. If you recall, when the IDA took title to Tryon 6 years ago now, 7 years ago, we held 2 auctions to sell as much of the contents that the state left in all of those buildings. At that time, there were 3 lifts. 2 of those 3 lifts sold. One of the lifts was a huge, was the largest of the 3 and sold for a significant amount of money. One of the other lifts that was sold for $700. This second one, which was very similar in size to the one that sold for $700, for some reason, we never got an offer on it. Or I think the offer we did receive was very little, and so the decision was made to not accept that offer at that time. We have just received an offer for that lift. Someone has seen it, made aware of it, and wishes to put an offer in for $500 to sell that lift to them. And so wanted to present that to the board to see if you would have an interest in selling that lift for $500 or not.
I'd make a motion to accept that offer. That's fine. It's been sitting there for years.
Yeah, Scott was just saying that Chris Stanky says that identified the sticker on the side of the lift. It was built in 1969, so it's got a few years. But the purchaser will take it site as is and try to get it to work.
Jim, this is Dave Demore. I'll second the motion.
Okay. Any further discussion or comments? Having none, let's do a roll call vote. Dave Demore,
Aye.
Joe Semyon,
Aye.
Todd Rulison,
Aye.
Jane Kelly,
Aye.
Mike Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Tim Munn.
Aye.
The motion is passed. Under other business, I have no reason to go into executive session. The only other thing to discuss would be the concept that I emailed everybody about late last week regarding our COVID-19 pandemic, and
Yeah.
whether the IDA board had an interest in purchasing something to assist in that with this pandemic, and tossed out a couple of ideas of potential purchases. Wasn't intending that those would be the only two, but just didn't know. I wanted to have a discussion to see if it's something that the board wanted to consider or not.
I think it was a very good idea, especially in the times that we're living, that we do have the means to do it. The only question I would have, is there any problem with us giving that money with Paris or any of the reporting that we would have to do? Because I think I had mentioned before when Arlene Searley had passed about possibly making a donation or doing something for her. And I know that we said we could do it individually, but it was kind of the money that couldn't probably be used for even flowers or some kind of a plaque or something. So I just don't want to get us in trouble. I think it's great to donate some money. So, and we have the money, so I would be in favor of just, if you can answer that part of the question.
I think the key here would be that we would be purchasing something on behalf of another entity. You know, it wouldn't be considered, it wouldn't be a donation. We would be purchasing a piece of equipment on behalf of, for example, the one piece of equipment that we mentioned that the county is going to be needing, or purchasing materials, you know, masks that would be used for businesses.
Right.
Kara, is that the way that this would be best handled?
Yeah, Joe makes a good point with respect to donations and gifts of funds. I think if the IDA is actually purchasing the item, direct purchase to be used by the general public, small businesses in the area, it's going to be less of an issue for ABO.
Thank you, Kara.
Jim, this is Todd. I like the idea of those temperature devices. I thought they could be used throughout the county. Obviously, there's different entrances and exits and things of that nature, but I thought that was a great idea.
Yeah, those are going to be needed. Right now, the county anticipates having to acquire probably 3 of those. Again, does the IDA have to buy all 3? No. Can it? Sure. But that, you know, and because of that was something I knew was out there, I threw that out as just as an idea for everybody to consider. So.
I think purchasing one of them would be a very good gesture. And if we want to do more, you know, it's up to the other board members, but maybe just do one of them. And that was a cost of around $2,200.
Correct.
And we do have a good partnership with the county and CRG, all the different organizations. So it's good to get Fulton County up and running again. If we can help them out, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
Right, John?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm in favor of the idea as well. I think we have the means. I think it's the right thing to do if we can.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, I mean, the county government, the fiscal impacts of this pandemic on county government really remains to be seen. I think John indicated in his report indications of the potential loss of revenue is already being seen as various forms of state aid have been frozen. Okay. CHIPS money is an example, which the county relies on annually for its repaving program of county roads. Who knows? We may not get any of that this year. The biggest impact is going to be on sales taxes.
Right.
Okay. And we don't know. We received the first quarter, but that's not when the major impact is going to be. The major impact is going to be starting in the second quarter and the third quarter. Okay. And so, the county government's going to be faced with some really serious challenges. Again, the extent of which don't know yet. We'll know in the next, in the next month or so what those are going to be. So any assistance that could be provided to local government would certainly be helpful. Likewise, and again, that's why I tossed out the concept of mass. Yes, we're starting to see, we're going to hopefully start seeing unpausing occurring this Saturday with some local businesses. And there are going to be many local businesses who are going to be facing fiscal challenges in unpausing, as they all have to make changes to physical layouts of retail spaces and professional offices, whatever the case may be, to maintain social distancing. So, again, there's a need there also. So that's why we put that out there. Seems like there's an interest on the part of the board to do something. So if the focus is going to be on potentially purchasing these temperature machine, I think the issue then is it one or two or three? I think that's would be the issue. Joe has suggested one, which is fine. Does anyone have any other thoughts on that number?
Jim, I think you had initially thought maybe upwards of $4,000 or $5,000 set aside for something. Is that what was originally?
Dave, it wasn't a suggestion. It was just, I was tossing out a
Yep.
number for discussion purposes. But,
Understood. Understood.
I think we can go 5.
Mm-hmm.
Are those devices $2,200 a piece?
Yes.
I would suggest
think you're
we get
two.
at least 2 of them.
2 is fine, sure. I mean, I think that you're going to see a definitely impact. I mean, it's a great help. I mean, I know we were willing with the help with the CRG to possibly do a advertisement, which we would be splitting, which was, costly, but it could have been potential, exposure for Fulton County. So, but this is definitely, going to be used and needed in Fulton County right now. So I think, like Todd said, 2 would be very acceptable. So that's $4,400. I think that's a very good gesture on our part
I agree.
with our partners. Yep.
Okay.
I'll make a motion then that we buy 2 of those devices for the county.
I would second that.
Any further discussion?
And they are at 2,200. And we don't have to put a high limit or anything, right?
That's the quote that we got, Joe, was that the county got was about $2,200.
That's fine. We're willing to spend up to 5,000 anyways, I guess. So that's fine.
I'll leave it that in the motion, Todd, if it's okay, to purchase 2 each at approximately $2,200. So if it comes in $2,210 or
Right.
$2,250, we're covered.
Right. I'm good.
Okay,
That's
fair
fair.
enough. All righty. Let's take a roll call vote. Dave Demore,
All right.
Joe Semyon,
Aye.
Todd Rulison,
Aye.
Jane Kelly,
Aye.
Mike Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Tim Munn.
Aye.
Motion passed. Unless anyone else has any additional topic to wish to discuss. Is there anything else out there? Our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, June 9th at 8 a.m. Hopefully, we'll see you back here in the conference room then.
That'd be
But
great.
if not, I'll look forward to seeing all your smiling faces on the computer screen again.
Great.
It's great
Good
to see
job,
everyone.
Chairman.
We need a
Be
roll
well,
call vote.
everybody.
We need a roll call vote to close the meeting.
That's right. I make a
Okay.
motion to close the meeting.
Very good.
I'll
Joe,
second.
Jane, Dave Demore,
Aye.
Joe Semyon,
Aye.
Todd Rulison,
Aye.
Jane Kelly,
Aye.
Mike Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Tim Munn.
Aye.
Meeting has adjourned at 9:21 a.m. Have a good day, everyone.
Yes,
Yeah.
you too.
Good
Nice to
day.
see
Thank
you
you.
all. Bye-bye.
Safe
Bye.
guys.
Everyone.
See you soon.